Hello, I'm David Chandler. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Martial Arts Real Talk. Today in our studio we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Patrick Steele. Patrick, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Glad to be here.
We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, and one of the first things that comes to mind, I guess, when you're talking martial arts is, where did it all begin for you?
Well, actually, it started for me when I was about 10 years old.
Okay.
I saw a martial art demonstration, and I was impressed. I'd never seen anything like that before, so I was kind of hooked right there.
Right off the bat, yeah. What kind of demonstration was going on? Was it a tournament or?
No, actually, it was one individual just running the form.
Wow.
But I had never seen anything like that before.
Okay.
He was running the form, and I saw the kicks and the aerial kicks, and it was really impressive.
Had you seen anything like that on television before, or was this just a real life experience that just touched you when you saw it?
Well, actually, I had an opportunity to see a Bruce Lee movie.
Okay.
Probably within that same time spent. Yeah. And I was, and when I saw that was really the inspiration.
Yeah.
And that was really the inspiration for it. And I was just hooked.
I think Bruce Lee probably has been one of the single greatest influences, if not the greatest influence, to martial artists since he was here and even to this day. I mean, a real martial artist doing quality martial arts on film, it's just timeless. And so it's touched you, touched me when I was growing up, and I still think it's touching people today. Do you remember when you first started, what was one of your biggest motivations after getting into the martial arts?
Well, at that particular time in my life, I was running the streets, a lot of problems, a lot of trouble, and getting in a lot of fights, being picked on a lot. I was a little guy. And so being able to defend myself was the motivation for me.
Okay. So being on the street, running into people, probably bigger than you, I would imagine. That's
of course,
the same thing I ran into in school as well. I can remember when I was 16 years old was the first time I stepped into a martial arts studio. And at 16, I was a little bitty guy, 6 foot, but 147, 150 pounds. And just thinking after watching movies and seeing things like that, surely if I start doing this, I'm going to be able to take care of myself. So it was a motivation for me as well. I think a lot of people, when they think of getting into the martial arts, that's probably the number one factor is self-defense.
I agree. In my experience, yeah, that has been the number one factor.
Now let me ask you this. Once you started learning at that early stage in the beginning, how much of it were you having to apply very quickly back on the street?
Quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. Especially where I was living. A lot of bullying.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly trying to defend myself. So quite a bit.
Okay, so it was like you start the lessons, you start learning to protect yourself, and then the real life application was almost immediate. You leave the studio and you're putting that into. Okay. How many styles of martial arts have you trained in? What was the first one, and was there styles after that?
The very first one was Taekwondo, actually.
Okay.
And then years later, Shotokan.
Shotokan, okay.
And then after that, of course, American Karate is what I'm doing now.
Okay. Obviously, Taekwondo is a very well organized martial art. It's out there at the World Taekwondo Federation, the International Taekwondo Federation. Shotokan seems to be a fairly organized martial art. So when most people start the martial arts, it's usually one of those two, or perhaps some Kung Fu, but American freestyle, American Karate come probably a little harder to come by, I guess, back when you were starting the martial arts?
Well, my version of American Karate is a style that I formulated myself.
Okay.
What I did is that I took the basic techniques that are universal techniques, meaning that they don't belong to anybody in particular, but they belong to everybody in general.
Right.
So I took the basic techniques and formulated my own philosophy around it.
How many years have you been training?
Actually, a little over 40 years.
Okay, so after 40 years of martial arts experience, training, teaching, learning, this system that you've created, the American Karate, with the universal principles, what motivated you to move away from an existing traditional style, say Taekwondo or Shotokan, and move forward into what you've created now?
I felt like it was limiting me.
Okay.
There were other things, other techniques that I wanted to practice, try, learn, and incorporate in, and I wasn't allowed to do that.
In those traditional systems.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of martial artists experience, whether you've trained in any particular discipline for a long period of time, there at least begins to be questions in our mind that we start saying, could this be done a different way? Is there something that could be added to it? I think it's just a natural evolution for anyone who's spent decades in a martial arts training mindset. It's the natural evolution, I believe, to go to that next level.